Welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, sometimes clever Star Trek podcast. With you, as frequent as possible, is your acting captain, ensign, all around mischievous science officer, Clyde Haynes. And with me,
It's not my fault, Mariah. Clyde, he's taking over the ship. I can't do this on my own. I can't do it. Pause to touch it.
yes, tonight we've gone rogue where our fearless captain has been stranded on a desolate planet somewhere. But
Yeah.
we're excited to talk about Section 31.
Section 31,
Movie part.
everyone.
Yes.
A movie's coming out. I've seen the billboards in LA. Michelle Yeoh just yoing out. I think I think it's gonna be not just good, but good enough.
I agree. I've watched this trailer many times at this point. So we're like a week away, Paul.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty excited.
Isn't that exciting? Okay. So, Paul, why don't you tell the people how to find us?
Hey, I am here. I'm here to remind the listeners, that's you guys, to subscribe to our podcast at Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you'd like, please join us on our Patreon. So you have access to our amazing Slack community.
It's awesome. That is great. And I'm here to tell the people that if you are watching us live, so one, shout out to all our strictly podcast listeners who listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, or you watch us later. Appreciate you guys, really do. You people, really do. My heart goes out to you, our day ones. But if you are some of those faithful who like to watch and participate with us live, and you have a comment, a question, a thought, then please feel free to type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat, and we'll be able to interact with you. We'll get your comment. See, Paul, it's not that hard. I know last week you struggled with the
Oh,
pod a
oh,
bit.
you're giving me notes live.
Just
Thanks,
live,
Clyde. Thanks,
just
Clyde.
jump in there. It's
Like,
you know.
where were you, might I ask?
Uh,
I had to step up. I was there. I was there.
you were no. I seriously though. I appreciate you coming for me, Paul. I really do. Thank you. Um, Okay, so with that, if you've got a particular thought about this particular episode, so we're talking about Deep Space Nine's season 7, episode 16, Enter Arma Enim Silent Leges. Legis?
Yeah, Latin's a dead language, so I don't know.
I mean, don't
It's
say that.
really dead in like the 23rd century.
Yes. So we're going to talk about that episode as it relates to Section 31. We're going to talk about it tonight. If you have some thoughts about that episode and you want to give us your overall kind of musings about the show, in a moment you'll know when, and just type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat. And so with that, I think it's time to get into a little bit of a little deep V action for you,
There you
for
go.
those of you live in the chat.
Clyde loves a deep V, everyone.
I do. I can't pull it off.
The deeper, the V'er.
I just
No,
say,
no, no,
look,
no, no, no. The deeper, the V'ger. There we
look.
go.
I say if you can rock the deep V, then rock it. Now, I personally think Riker, it's 23rd century. You can manscape a little bit, bro. Just clean that up. Just clean that up just a little bit. Just saying.
I know.
So, Paul.
Hey, it's me.
And you love DS9.
I do love DS9. Thank you for listening for over the last 2 years. How much I keep on. It's there. Boom. Yes, DS9 is my favorite.
Okay. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you thought about this episode, now that you're watching it as we prep for Section 31.
So, as everyone knows, who of those who do not, I am a big fan of Section 31. I think it is one of the best additions to the Star Trek universe, because for all of it, the Federation has always played some form of like, oh, everything works out because we live in paradise, and Deep Space Nine really pushes against that. Like, oh, we're at war, and things episodes like Pale Moonlight really push the idea that people are pushed to the brink. However, like when with the introduction of Section 31, what I thought was really amazing about that is like, oh no, you misunderstand. From the very beginning, you know, paradise is a lie. Like you need us to cheat for you behind your back in order for the lie to be able to be to manifest. And I think that's such a cool perspective. Uh I and to put into like a show that is like pretty much optimism forward. And so this episode, like like I love all three Section 31 episodes in Deep Space Nine. This one just furthered, that lore. Like the first one was just setting it up, and you're like, oh my god, is that a thing that just happened? And here it brings it up to this point of like, oh no, it's not just a thing; it just keeps happening. Like like this is part of the mechanism is that Section 31 is this integral part of the Federation that has no accountability and no one really sees.
It's interesting because I don't have quite the history and the love affair with Section 31 that you do. Um, because I haven't seen DS9 really multiple times or parts of it multiple times. I feel like I was reintroduced to Section
Mhm.
31 via Discovery.
Sure, sure.
Um, and so it's almost like I'm going backwards.
Hmm.
But the line in this one in the very last scene where Sloane is telling Bashir, you know, the Federation needs more men like you,
Hmm.
but I'm here so that men like you can be like you, like don't get killed. Like I
Like
thought
this,
that
like
was a
the reason why you get to be you is because of me.
right. I thought that was maybe the best explanation of the Section 31 mission
Hmm.
and vision ever.
Yeah, no, I think it's such a smart like addition to the universe, and it's not like I suppose you wouldn't want to see it necessarily in the original series or even in Next Generation, but Deep Space Nine was designed to basically say, hey, here's what happens when you're at the edge of uh of paradise. Like it's like Deep Space Nine is basically a western, and so and one of the things that a western really explores is the idea that there is frontier law. There's not,
Mhm.
everything can't be perfect, and they pushed it even further with like Voyager that way. And so, what other, of course, like Section 31 would be introduced in Deep Space Nine because like that's where like the grayness happens.
Uh, would you call Deep Space Nine like a space western almost?
I think they pitched it that way. I don't think it wound up being that way. Like part of a western is not being around what you call it, civilization, and you have to kind of make your own morals. But
Mhm.
in the end, the Federation pretty much stays the Federation there. They just have to get pushed to like extremes in a way that look, I use all the time here. Like, the biggest war criminal in frickin' Deep Space Nine, Benjamin Sisko. Like every Romulan who died in the war is because of him. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm not
like
gonna
like
sign I'm not co-signing that one,
but
but,
that's the truth. It's like You don't have to like it, but like every single Romulan, like it's based on a lie, and like, now Garrick helped, and Garrick also one of my favorite characters. But like the idea of having Cisco is, and here's another thing, like in this episode, in this dead language episode, like the admiral gets one of his best friends like kicked off and probably imprisoned and almost definitely killed because like it was better for the Federation. Mwah! Mwah!
Well, no, I see your point. So we can step through this episode. Would you
Yeah,
you want to
sure.
you want to take us through this episode a little bit, Paul?
Sure. Like like everyone remember that Julian's a doctor. Well, in an episode much earlier, he dealt with this disease that the founders, what you call it, manufactured, called the quickening. And so now, like he and a bunch of people are going to Romulus to give a lecture. Then all of a sudden, Section 31 kind of goes, "Yo, I have a mission for you, Julian." And Julian's like, "No, I don't work for you." He goes, "But you want to." And so the mission is basically to go and observe, right?
So, so let me ask you, kind of
Yeah.
pausing here for a moment. What is your read on Julian and his involvement with Section 31? So this idea that I never said I'd work for you, but you applied and you got in, so that's how it works. Like, do you think that Julian does like he secretly wants to be of and thrives is this idea of being a part of Section 31?
I
Or
think,
is it he's a reluctant participant?
I mean, like basically Cisco gave him the order to go undercover, uh, and but like in the end, Julian really is enamored with the what you call it, uh, with the lifestyle of covert operations. But he's too much of a goody goody. Like like there's a line he will not cross that line until the next episode, which is great.
So, well, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit as it relates to
Yeah.
Section 31.
Yep.
So, we're gonna watch this movie here next week.
Yep.
Do you think that that's gonna be a theme? Like, you talk about this line, right? And thinking about Michelle Yeoh
Hmm.
and the evolution of her character through Discovery. Are you expecting that? Does she have a line that she's not willing to cross?
This is really interesting because, like, for all of it, and this, I feel that Discovery third Section 31 is not in alignment with what Deep Space Nine and Enterprise set up. Like basically in Enterprise and Deep Space Nine, you have this shadowy organization that really is more about surgically puppeting the world around it. Like it works very hard to be invisible.
It's the
Where,
CIA, or
well, I would say
NSA.
imagine if the CIA had its own unknown CIA branch. It really what it is like in Alias. Like what's Alias, section 8, or I don't remember what, but like this random unknown uh, agency in the government, because the CIA is effectively Starfleet intelligence. Starfleet intelligence has its own thing.
Mhm.
But like this is like something other than, something extra intelligence kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, like I my concern with the movie is that it's just going to be Michelle Yeoh being James Bond, Jason Bourning through Star Trekness, which I enjoy watching regardless. So I'm fine with that. But it's not exactly Section 31. Does that make sense?
Yes, right? Because what you're talking about is what we expect Section 31 to be. So if we
Mhm.
do parallels, right, what Section 1 kind of sets up to be is a little bit more like Homeland,
Sure.
right? It's the spy work,
Hmm.
the undercover, the moving of the pieces in a
Hmm.
subtle way that causes ripples and waves farther down the line, right?
Exactly.
In the shadows. Whereas when you and that is a perfect setup for a show, right?
Hmm.
Particularly a TV show, long format, kind of over many
Sure.
episodes. But we get a movie, and movies tend to be more, to your point, more Mission Impossible, right?
Yeah, more
Oh,
Jason
so
Bourne, more which is fun to watch. Is they make great action
yes.
movies, but like
So
you know,
here's my analogy. Here's my analogy. So I've been watching a number of kind of spy-esque shows lately, right?
sure,
And these spy-esque shows are usually British spies esque show, right? So
sure.
there are things like Slow Horses,
Hmm.
and I think there's a new one out which names I can't remember, but I look over and it's always these references to MI6 and
Hmm.
MI5, but in a TV format they're pretty slow, right? Like you'll have a little bit of action here and there, but there's more character development, there's a lot more dialogue, there's more walking around. But if you compare that MI6 to Mission Impossible, where Tom Cruise is frequently hanging off the side of a cliff, right, dangling from something or like those move. There's not a lot of talking. It's a lot more action. I think the question for me is when we think about Section 31, a Star Trek movie, are we going to get more slow horses or are we going to get more Mission Impossible?
The answer is like I don't know. I don't know. I wish I did.
So you were saying they're enjoyable. Are would you as a
Like
Section 31 fan, would you be okay with that?
I'd be okay with anything. Like for all of it, although Section 30, the things I love about Section 31 were not embedded in Discovery. I did like Discovery season 2. Like I
Okay.
thought so, and I love Michelle Yeoh's character.
Mhm.
I my hope, my fear and hope is that like they will not lean into her archness so much that it becomes not interesting. Like I think there are like when you see the Emperor for for a while, like she really leans into it, and towards the end she becomes more of a person to watch. A
Mhm.
character that interests me. Like she went through a lot of development before we got to her leaving the show. I my fear is that they're going to erase all that in order to get the more Mission Impossible aspects. But I hope not.
I I think we're gonna get more Mission Impossible.
Yeah, no,
And that's mainly because I think of the format,
sure,
right?
100%.
I think I think if you're gonna get, you know, Kern in the chat says less Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, right? If we get something like that, now you're talking about a 3-hour Kevin Costner movie,
Okay,
right?
I'm in.
It I'm with you.
Like
I'm with
Dances with
now.
Yo.
Dances with Yo. So part of this is hard for me
Uh-huh.
because I love the world. I
Mhm.
love the franchise. And so I'm not a great judge because here's what I'm saying, Paul. If you slap a Star Trek logo on it, I'm gonna watch it at least once,
Yeah,
including Enterprise, right? I'm gonna watch it.
sure.
Am
Because
I
you have
gonna
faith
love it?
of the heart.
I have faith of heart, yes. Um, it- but when I think about something like if they pull this off right,
Mhm.
right? So saying they're going on the Mission Impossible route, they pull this off right, then that's what they get. They get two things that are really interesting for a Star Trek franchise. They get a new entry into the movie category that can just spawn sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel, right? Like they can
I mean
just go for a while.
I'd watch it. Like, it's
And I'd say they also get something that's rewatchable. That because you could turn on Mission Impossible, any one of them right now. If you were flipping channels, I know we don't flip channels anymore, but if you were flipping channels and you caught Mission Impossible in a third way through the movie, you stop and watch it a little bit.
Sure.
No?
Maybe
Yeah.
not 2, maybe not 3.
Maybe not. But like,
That's just me.
it,
I'm.
I'm probably watching it. I'm wondering if we're gonna get something like that for Star Trek, where it's
Yeah.
like it's just this thing where it's like, man, I can watch that anytime. I mean, now they have some of that. Like,
Mhm.
mess around. I'm gonna watch First Contact if I catch it. Right, I'm gonna watch it.
Like,
Maybe not Generations, but I'm gonna watch First Contact and Nemesis.
it was very interesting. Like, a friend of mine got a brand new 82-inch OLED television. And so we were watching Star Trek, Abrams Star Trek, and Abrams Star Trek 2.
Hmm.
And we're watching like the opening sequence. And first of all, beautiful in both things. But
Hmm.
what we're watching and we're going like, why is one more compelling than the other? Like, and then I'm watching Into Darkness. I go like, why do I actually enjoy uh, the first Star Trek more than Into Dark? Is Into Darkness boring? I go, no, it's not boring. Like, I don't have a good answer, but
I think it felt like an origin story, right? Like
the first, yeah, sure,
the first one, and it there's just something about it. Like, listen, I'm a fan of the Iron Man series.
sure.
I think they're all watchable,
Hmm.
but one, Iron Man 1 is so much higher than everything else. But part of that is because it's a fresh take. Like, when I think about the kind of Abrams Star Trek, that scene with a young Kirk
Hmm.
driving that car off the cliff, like, you're getting this backstory, this setup. It's kind of the team up. I love a good team up. So I'm getting all of that. By the time you get the second and the third, they're just missions now, right? They're
Yeah,
missions and they're not bad, but there's something about the introduction. I love to see the introduction. Like, we want to know how the characters got together, right?
yeah, maybe. Like,
And
I'll push against that. I'll go like,
please,
do you like Batman, or Nolan's Batman, or do you like Dark Knight?
I mean, The Dark Knight is great,
So also, like there are examples of.
but I mean, but I was
Don't
was was
don't.
Batman really an origin story? I mean, I feel like that's different because they tried to reboot Batman like 3 times.
I mean, you don't have to get mad at me. You don't have to yell.
I'm just saying, you know, and I feel like Michael Keaton doesn't get enough Batman respect. I'm just saying.
Like, in the end, I come to decide that it's really hard. No one goes out to make a not amazing movie. Everyone tries to make an amazing movie. I think for Star Trek Into Darkness, I think they just missed the tone a bit of what I liked in the original Star Trek. Uh, and that's what I feel that Discovery, uh, Section 31 does to the Section 31 that's set up in Deep Space Nine. I think they're both enjoyable. And I watch Star Trek Into Darkness. I go like, this is good. It's not what I'm looking for, and so
Gotcha.
I think in that way they have they have two real choices. They either go and follow through on what they set up in Discovery, or they do something new. They can't go back to Deep Space Nine. That style of Section 31 isn't going to work out. I don't think so. And if it be Mission Impossible, I'm great. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Um,
Yeah.
we should jump back in this before Mariah kills me. I
Uh huh.
mean, if Mariah, if you're listening, just keep in mind. I know we're off. We're on the topic, but off track just a little bit. We have not talked about food yet, so just give us a break.
Oh, okay.
Yet being the key word there. Okay, so back to DS9, right?
So,
So
yep. So we got Julian ordered by Cisco to work with Admiral Ross to quote unquote be like, uh pretend to be recruited by Section 31. And all of a sudden, Sloan comes by and it shows up in the most auspicious waiter outfit, and or I don't even know if it was a waiter. He just reminds me of a waiter, some cartographer or something like that. And then gives him his mission. He goes, "Hey, look around, and more importantly, know all the Romulans, and particularly this one guy who is the head of Romulan
Tal Shiar.
security,
Yep.
yet and a very anti-Federation person."
I'll have to admit, I've always been pretty fascinated by the Tal Shiar.
Hmm.
They're just the Romulan covert, like clandestine spy organization.
Yeah,
I've always looked at them as like, wow, that's pretty serious. Like they're the KGB,
sure.
right? The Mossad of like foreign intelligence agencies. They seemed a little less scary in this
Yeah,
episode to me.
I think I think for all of it, they used to be pretty interesting in TNG. But then
Mhm.
when Deep Space Nine came along, they go like, "Oh, Garrick is part of the Obsidian Order, and the Obsidian Order makes the Tau Shura look good, like good humor men." And I go, "Oh, okay, I accept that." And Garrick is pretty. He's really good. He you get to see the spycraft in him.
Mhm.
So
You do.
so then you go like, "Oh, the Tau Shura are a bunch of little punks." Anyway, so Julian has to observe this one guy. Turns out that Sloan is wondering if this guy is sick with some degenerative Romulan Vulcan disease. And because Julian can, with his genetically enhanced brain and blah, 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 uh, make better diagnoses, he tells Sloan that this guy might have it. It's in if he does, it's in the very early stages, 60 years before it becomes fatal. And
Mhm.
then Sloan says in that mustache twirly way, like, are there examples of this randomly accelerating? and, and then Bashir goes, "Yeah, here's how you do that."
I have to admit, I was like, you see where this is going, right, Julian? Like, is this something you really like? What are you
And
doing?
my thought is for your genetically enhanced brain, why don't you think that they already know? They already know this, or why are they asking you? They're setting you up, man. They're setting you up. But Julian, he's just a nice guy. He didn't have the spycraft. Anyway, so he tells Ross, and Ross is going to arrest Sloan. All of a sudden, Ross has a stroke. Admiral Ross has a stroke, and Julian believes that Section 31 is going to assassinate the head of the Tau Shiar. The only person that he do is talk to one of the Romulan ambassadors. This is a general who has been part of Deep Space Nine. They had 3 different actresses play her, and so
Mhm.
but they wanted, anyway. This person was supposed to be a fan, not a fan, but an ally to Julian's, and Julian has felt that she was a very trustworthy person, and Julian, in all his dumbness, goes like, "Hey, uh, there's probably a spy in the Tau Shiar. Why don't you break into the head of the Tau Shiar's computer and find out who he is, so we can stop this assassination plot?" And she does. And and and
And
lo and
he's gonna live
behold,
with the fact that he's gonna get her killed.
they all get caught because, of course, they're on Romulus. They're hacking into the Tau Shiar. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
And so it all kind of blows up in his face. He gets neither exonerated, or he doesn't get blamed, but she gets blamed for being tricked into like trying to hack into some files. And then lo and behold, that head of Tau Shiar, hey, he's captured Sloan. because Sloan is an arrogant jerk. It had to be around, and explained like there is actually no Section 31. Sloan is just some rogue operative, and then Sloan tries to kill the guy, and the guy kills Sloan. The end. Except,
So, yes. So let me ask you this, Paul.
yep.
Do you think he got? Do you think
He
he
being
was?
Julian.
No, he being Sloan. Do
Uh-huh.
you think Sloan was captured on purpose as a way to discredit anyone who was thinking about to basically hide the existence of Section 31?
100%. Like
Okay.
he wasn't captured. Like so like here's like here's the M Night Shyamalan twist. There's a twist. Julian is sleeping on the plane in the ship, and he gets up and he meets Admiral Ross, who has recovered from his stroke in the middle of the night, and goes, "Hey, where's Sloan?" And then like Ross goes, "Sloan's dead." He goes, "Where's Sloan?" And then Ross goes, "If we're going to have this conversation," takes off his badge off the record.
Did he put it in a box?
No, he just put it like on desk, and then he goes like, "I don't know what happened to Sloan." And what's revealed is that Sloan, Sloan had basically the head of the Tau Shiar is actually working for Section 31. Whoa! And why would they do this? It's because if the anti uh, Federation person tells everyone that they should still stick to the agreement that Cisco brokered and tricked all these Romulans into dying. By the way, war criminal.
Just not gonna give that up, are you?
It's it's there. Like
Leave his legacy intact, Paul.
like
He's a great captain.
no. I
Great
think
captain.
I think what you say is like leave his legacy out of your mouth, Paul. And anyway, and so ultimately, there was all set up at the very end. Like Sloan, comes and visits Julian and says, "Thank you for being a decent human being. I really admire that. But you exist on my shoulders, basically." And then that's it.
So, I mean, look, I actually enjoyed this episode.
You have to put actually in that. You can just say, "I enjoyed this episode." You don't have to be that way.
Well, okay, so here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
If you think about the things that I like,
Uh-huh.
right? I like team ups.
Yep.
I like pew pews and space
Two ships.
battles.
Yep.
I like, you know, kind of incredible monologues. Like I like a little bit more action.
Mhm.
This involved Julian and a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Okay? So in the beginning, I wasn't sure that I was like, oh man, I don't know that I'm going to really enjoy this. It doesn't have any of my favorite characters in there, right?
Sure.
Right. We got Kira for like a minute, and basically, I feel like that was a setup for some other things.
Yeah, no, you make a strong point. This is not a Clyde Forward episode.
No, I like Julian, but I like him as an addition to some other
Sure.
people in the room.
Like a Robin.
Yes. So I wasn't sure what I was going to get. But when I look at it, I was like, oh no, this was an interesting episode. And what was interesting is, sometimes as much as I love Trek, I feel like it falls into a repetition of patterns, right?
Sure.
We joke about the legal episodes,
Mhm.
right? Somebody is falsely accused of doing something in a foreign country or a foreign planet where they didn't know, where it was an accident, or they're being set up, and then they're on trial, right?
Sure.
There's one of those like every season. So I'm used to those. This Star Trek spycraft,
Yeah, no, that's a great way
a
of putting it.
little bit different. Like this was different, and I was like, okay, so let me go back and look. And I think it's interesting that now that I've seen many more spycraft shows and movies, to go back and rewatch this one through a lens of almost being a more informed viewer. I liked it. Like,
Yeah, good. It's amazing.
Yeah. I wouldn't say amazing. I kind of would like a couple more things that I didn't see coming. But I think for that you would need a 2-part episode, and you got to set some things up to go, whoa, for 45-minute episode where you have to begin and end the entire spy craft
Mhm.
plot. Pretty good, like
Yeah, no,
pretty impressive what they were able to do.
I think ultimately, like a good spy uh, story involves a lot of trickery, right? You're like,
Hmm.
oh, I thought it was this, but it's actually this, and a real good show is able to continually do that as opposed to make you go like, oh, I'm done, you know.
Yeah. So, I mean, that brings me to really thinking about, like, if you had a vote, what are you hoping that you get to experience in this Section 31 movie?
If I had to say what
Hmm.
I want is Michelle Yeoh to flash me 6 numbers that happen to be the winning lotto numbers, and when I find out that it's all real, it's all real. Michelle Yeoh is from the future, and I'm part of this great temporal destiny. So that's my hope. That's Plan
Okay.
A.
What? Okay. Tell me about Plan B then. If that can't happen, what else you got?
Plan B is like I hope that like I walk out of it, they go like, oh, that was fun. I don't actually care for. I expect it to be like Mission Impossible.
Okay.
I just don't want what I think it's not. If you can just not undo all the things that you set up before,
Hmm.
and like I'd be happy.
I am interested. So when we think
Like
about,
actually, I'd like to respond to Choopy, like
sure.
but why does Sloan have to be such a creep? And my response to that is like that is a feature, not a flaw.
Okay. Well, I think what you're dealing with Sloan is, eh, if he's a handler, right? So ultimately, he is Julian's handler,
Sure, in
and
this
I
role right
think,
now.
yeah, in this role, and I think partly when you look at a handler, and you have someone who is being handled kind of against their will, you almost want them to be a creep. You don't want to like him. Like, he's forcing Julian to do things that Julian doesn't want to do. You don't want to like that guy, right? So I agree with you. I think being a creep is a feature because that's who he has to be.
Like
Now,
I would say also that like for from a writing perspective, you need someone opposite than uh, than Julian.
mhm,
And Julian is this like puppy dog kind of like, hi, I like everyone. Can't we all get along? Blah blah. Let me try to cure the Jemadar. He's that guy.
mhm.
But like you flip it around, like say take a show like Breaking Bad, and was Gus a creep? You know, he's like this mastermind kind thing, but like he was a cold hard man. But like he presented as like, hi, I sell chicken. Would you like some chicken?
Chicken Man.
That's right. So
Yeah, but there was a coolness and a deliberateness about Gus that didn't make him come off as a creep.
yeah, yeah, no,
He
no,
came off as cold
yeah, yeah.
and at times ruthless, but not a creep. Sloane
But
comes off as a creep.
oh yeah, but I think you do it in contrast to the character that you are.
Mm,
Uh, like for all of it, like Walt can be cold until you compare him to Gus, and then
mhm.
Walt is like this sentimental fool compared to Gus. And so, in the same way, like Sloane, for all of it, is like he
I see
in a
what
w-
you're saying.
and in a way, like he has to be that way because like he is he is mysterious to what you call it to Julian. And here's another thing: he has to be opposite than Garrick, or not opposite,
Mhm.
but he can't be like Garrick because that's another spy that we've already had. So in a way,
Some yin and yang, right?
yeah, I
Like,
mean, in a way, like you have to have it so that Julian like kind of is fighting someone that's different than him.
Yeah. So Chupi mentions in the chat, Giorgio is flippant and callous, but she could be very sincere and it arrests your attention and makes her more interesting. To your point, Paul, I think Giorgio is kind of the flip side of Burnham, right?
Sure.
Like where Burnham is loyal and we have to do, and this is what's right, and I'll sacrifice my reputation to do what's right. Giorgio is much more fly by the seat of her pants,
Well,
right?
yeah. The way I would describe it is like Burnham is for all of it a result of her Vulcan upbringing.
Mhm.
Controlled is the way that I would describe her, and Giorgio is the opposite of that, unbound. So, and I dig it.
So I'll say there are a couple things I'm hoping for with the Section 31 movie. One,
Pew
like you, I
pews.
mean, sure, I'm always looking for the pew pews. Um, there's some things that I'm excited about, right? So what
Mhm.
we understand is that we're seeing Giorgio is going to be part of Section 31. I'm hoping from the trailer that we've seen, I'm kind of expecting some type of a team up. So I'm really hoping that we get some new characters. I'm curious about this, like Michelle Yeoh and Amari Hardwick. That's an interesting dynamic. I'm trying to figure out, is that a teamish dynamic? Is he pursuing her? Like I'm trying to figure out some of that. But I'm hoping that there's a bit of a team up. I'm hoping there's some interesting battles, and I'm wondering, is this just a one off?
Mm.
Right? Like I'm trying to figure out, like, is this gonna be kind of a bottle movie, right?
Well, as I
Or is it gonna be
understand,
set up for more?
like as I understand it, like it was a series. The guy who was in charge of the series was then commissioned to write the script for the feature, and there you go. So as I understand it, so he just wrote a feature. I imagine it'll be standalone. I don't think like ideally what would happen is not ideally, but like Michelle Yeoh is too busy,
Mhm.
so she wouldn't be able to do a TV show. So it would be great if it set up a situation where there could be a series that I would want to watch. I will
Hmm.
watch it regardless.
Yes.
As I you might not know this, I do a podcast about Star Trek
Hmm.
where people can discover, you know, uh Star
A
Trek, like
podcast.
a
Yes.
podcast, that's right.
Do
It's
they
where
do you happen to watch, like, rewatch, like, shows and stuff? Do you on this
like
podcast?
sometimes like we cover n- new and all things Trek. So, yeah,
Okay. So you would be you're the type of person who's gonna watch this.
I would
Gotcha.
I would watch it. Like
I can identify with that. I'm in the same boat, I think, maybe.
there is no such thing as a Star Trek that I won't watch. It can be awful and I would watch it. That
I feel
I
I
am pot
hate
committed.
that. I hate that, but I am the same way.
Yeah, no.
Like, there's certain things that I feel like I have to watch, right? And I say this all the time. If
Mhm.
it's a rock movie, I'm gonna watch it. If it's Vin Diesel, I'm probably gonna watch it. If it's Jason Statham, I'm probably gonna watch it. They're not great, but I'm gonna watch them.
Like you mentioned a lot of bald men here, Clyde.
I wonder why. Maybe I see some. These are my hair follicle challenge brethren, maybe. Um, but I think even more than that, if it's Star Trek, not only am I going to watch it, I'm probably watching it more than once.
Yeah.
I'm all in. Like I'm all in. So I'm hoping that this what I'm really hoping for is to be rewarded with something that's entertaining and enjoyable and exciting. And largely, I'm also always looking for something that's going to further the franchise.
Mhm.
I want more Trek, not less, right? And
Sure.
you're canceling my shows left and right. Bring me
Uh,
some new
yeah, no.
properties.
I'm like I wanted to, but one can hope. But then we have to persevere regardless.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when we look at the art and the business,
Hmm.
and you nailed it. Would I have liked a Section 31 show that was a little bit like Homeland, and maybe Homeland meets Battlestar Galactica? Sure, right? But Michelle Yeoh probably does not have time for that, and that ties her up
Hmm.
from doing probably all the other things that she wants to do. Right? And she's not necessarily she's not new in her career. She's been at this for a minute, and
Sure.
she's been successful. Like, to get her tied up in a show, she's already been tied up in a show, in a Star Trek show. I think you'd be asking for a lot. So
Yeah.
to your point, I'm looking to see, are we talking about a show that she sets up but ultimately spins off a franchise that maybe doesn't need her? Is Are a series of movies more palatable for her schedule? I struggle to think that a Section 31 show, the way they've set it up, I wonder how it works without her. That's my only concern. Is
Mm. Yeah. No, I can see that.
I think
But
she's a star right now, and I
but like
pray I don't see Ash
yeah.
Tyler anywhere near this thing.
Yeah, like I don't want to speak for Mariah, but I remember that she thinks Ash Tyler is Trash Tyler.
Okay.
Trash Tyler is what she used to say all the time. Yeah, I don't know.
uh,
That's why I remember Trash
I don't quite
Tyler.
remember it that way, Mariah, if you're listening.
Yeah, that's
So
right. Like you can correct me, but like you ain't here. So, but I would say this. Um, there was a show on CBS a while back called Limitless,
yes,
and Limitless was based on a movie with
yes.
what's his name,
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper, and on occasion, Bradley Cooper would show up in like one or two episodes of Limitless, but the show was not about Bradley Cooper; it was about this other
No,
person. So,
yes.
I
They
mean, there's
they
precedent.
basically they basically recast Bradley Cooper as an actor that I didn't really care for, but yes.
Yeah, yeah, no, like a less charismatic person.
Y- yes.
And so, but there is precedent for having a movie with a star, and that star just like sprinkles in a few episodes in a few scenes in a season, and the show is the show. And the show, for all of it, I didn't love the show, but I know some people did. This is a really good show, and I watched it. It goes, your definition of really good is very different than mine.
Agreed. I mean, it was cute. I tried to watch it twice actually because I
Yeah,
love the concept of it, and I did like the movie.
yeah, no, I mean,
So I can see I see where you're going with that. And at the end of the day, like Kern says, I'm hoping the movie does so well that it encouraged Paramount to do more Trek movies, like for Discovery and Lower Decks. Sure, I just want it to do well so that it encourages someone to do more Trek. Because I thought that I would get to a
like,
saturation
let me ask
point,
you, how about
but
a
I'm not.
show? How about a show that is about like basically the Klingon homeworld meets Game of
Mhm.
Thrones, written by one Mariah Gossett and some other guy on a podcast with her? Would you
Hey,
watch that?
I would on one condition.
Like
One
you
condition.
will watch anything Star Trek, but when it
Yes.
comes to that concept, you're like on one condition.
Condition. There needs to be some involvement of a non-writer uh person who can find you got to find something for that person to do who
Yeah, no,
doesn't have
like
here.
we're in talks with Chupi right now.
Then yes, here you
Shout
got to
out to you,
find you,
Chupi.
you need a bald person who could help
Like
out. No,
I don't know The Rock, but I know Statham, so like
no,
I don't know
seriously.
Statham.
Listen, there's a couple things that you guys have pitched that I would absolutely watch. So Klingon Homeworld meets Game of Thrones. I'm all for that. There's a bunch of stuff, but I still think that there's so much undiscovered country left
Mhm.
in Star Trek that can be written.
No, that's okay.
stories that need to be told, things that have only just been scratched, and that's why I'm probably so excited about an Academy show,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
right?
I love it.
Okay, we've been going for almost an hour, Paul. Any other thoughts you want to say about this episode or getting ready for the Section 31 movie?
Like, I do wonder if I'm just a spy craft person, in the sense that I don't watch a lot of I do watch Slow Horses, but like in this way, like, is anyone else excited about Section 31 aside from it being Star Trek? Just like, oh yeah, this is worthwhile, or would you rather see, like, an Orion Taken movie? Yeah, I don't
I
know, like,
mean, listen, you had me at Orion. Like, you
yeah,
can
sure,
leave out the Taken, but you had me at Orion. Like,
yeah, like, like
but I
Tendy
like
going
spy.
like, I have a certain set of skills. The- I mean, I'd watch that, right? You watch Tendy like
I
go
want to
on
know
like
what
a
those
take,
skills are. What? Ooh,
yeah, like
what skills you got?
yeah, I got, like, you can let my sister go now, and we'll be done with it. But if you don't, I have a certain set of skills I spent a lifetime perfecting that makes me the like whatever. You watch that, right?
Yes, I would. So yeah, so I'm with you. Like there's a bunch of stuff I'm watch, but I do like spy shows,
Sure.
right? I think the issue is like any genre, there's a lot of spy shows.
Hmm.
Not all of them are good. And so I think there comes a time where you're kind of holding your breath. And this is a little bit different for Star Trek, right? Star Trek does like largely the West Wing in space very well,
I
right?
love that. I love that. Sure,
Like
sure. I love it. I
that's what
love
it
it.
is. It's
I know. I
it's
love
the
it.
walk it's the walk and talk. It's like we're like if you think about it, like my children when they come in and they see me watching an old episode of TNG, they're bored out of their minds, right? Because all they see is largely a bunch of people talking about stuff.
Sure, sure.
It's like a whole show about people just talking, right? Like occasionally you have some phaser fire
Hmm.
and occasionally you'll have a space battle, but for the most of it, it's people sitting around solving problems by talking. Okay. This is this is like, I wear the shirt. This is there are four lights.
Hmm.
This is like a whole movie about like that is asking Star Trek to do that type of stuff, right? Which they do in pockets here and there,
Hmm.
but you're kind of crossing your fingers and going, all right, let me see what you got. Like a lot of people have tried to do this. Star Trek, you've tried to do this with some success and some things that have been less successful. What do you got? But the idea of it is, spycraft in space. Like when you said, Paul, the Born Identity, like Star Trek makes the Born Identity. If that's what you're getting, if that's what I'm getting, that could be amazing,
Yeah. No.
right?
People should
But
hire me.
I think that's a tough thing to pull off. I don't want to put that level because the Born Identity was great, but it moved and it kind of kept you on your seat and you didn't know what was going to happen, and
No.
that's a
Like,
lot to pull off.
so, like, 100%. Like a show that could work. A spycraft show that Star Trek is like, you know, Garrick the early years. Like, I would watch a Garrick the early years. Just him doing all the spycrafty stuff. That he's infamous for, trying to hide the fact that he has a heart. Oh, it's so good.
I think that's interesting. So Choopy, so our chat's talking about another spy s show called Burn Notice, which was on kind of the USA Network. I don't know if you ever saw Burn Notice. I watched Burn Notice. I thought it was great. Burn Notice is very similar to me. It's like an updated almost version of the A Team
Sure.
in that you've got a collection of kind of a core group of 3 or 4 people. They're on missions that largely are to help people and save people every week. That's great. I don't expect this is that. Like
Sure.
what I get by this new generation of Trek minus Strange New Worlds is it's a bit darker, it's a bit grittier, right? And I would imagine that the goal of Section 31 is to live in that place, a darker, grittier, gray, more in the gray, less let's go out and help people, but more about spycraft, espionage, and again, to what we saw in this episode tonight, doing the things that ultimately protect the Federation in a way that is not Federation like.
Yeah, no, sometimes you gotta color outside the lines.
Mm-hmm.
That's my motto.
And that's why we work well, because I'm a color inside the lines, but
That's right.
together the whole page gets colored.
There you go. There you go. Okay, well, I think we did it. I think
I think
the
we
ship
did it.
has not exploded.
Nope.
Obviously,
And I
like,
think Mariah's legacy is intact. People
yeah,
will be looking forward for her to come
trash,
back.
uh,
Tyler.
trash Tyler. Like, it's. I think it's actually verbal wildfire now. Like, I'm so proud of,
Wow.
like I hope there are a bunch of memes gonna go out, like, in their credit to Mariah Gossett, trash Tyler. Like, well, what do I know? Like, I think he's actually a pretty cool guy, but, like, but I know Mariah hates trash. Oh my god, hates her so she's so anti-trash. Tyler, trash Tyler.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us on Star Trek Discovery Pod with Clyde and Paul this week. Holding it down, Mariah, we miss you. We can't wait for you to come back and pilot the ship in a direction that won't crash into the sun that we're currently headed in. But until next time, live long and prosper.
Hey, live long and prosper. There we go.